economically, what we've seen, so we've now, because of the poor economic management of COVID, but it wasn't, COVID was the match that lit the fuse, in my view, of 40 years of bad economic policy. And obviously when you go and print $300 billion and pay people to stay at home and get brainwashed by the premiers, you're going to end up with an economic problem down the track. And that was what, you know, I mean, I did a post the other day where I put out text messages I sent to the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, and Matthias Cormann at the time, saying, you know, how are we going to deal with this? How are we going to pay off the debt? You're going to cause inflation. I mean, I predicted that right back in March 2020. But what's annoying is, so in this particular term of government, we've had the first 18 months where we spoke about the voice. So we divided the population based on race. And then the next 18 months, and that was led by the Labor Party, the next 18 months is that the coalition have exploited the whole Gaza-Israel issue into let's create another crisis here in Australia based on something that's happening overseas. Now, you know, what's happening overseas is valid in terms of it's a valid issue, it's a legitimate issue, and I understand why many Australians are concerned about it, but it shouldn't be, the fear-mongering should not be, and by the media as well, should not be stoked. Being, you know, inflamed. So, because we've got a cost of living problem here, and number one, why did you know, the Albanese government, but it wouldn't have been much different under the coalition, allow immigration to go so high? And the reason I can answer that is that they needed immigrants to come in and buy houses as those interest rates increased. Because what happens with this, when times get tough, what happens in Australia is that people who live in Sydney and Melbourne, as they retire, as they struggle with their mortgage, if it gets too much to keep, they sell their house, they cash out, and then they move to Queensland or Western Australia or South Australia to a lesser degree. That is how this has been managed. And then what they do is, and then they rely on the immigrants, and they sell out to wealthy immigrants who come in and buy these houses to keep propping up the market.
Gotcha.
So, but of course, the overall long-term impact of that is for those people at the bottom of the food chain, who they'll ultimately end up not being able to find a place to rent, or homeless, or, you know, they have to go back and live with mum and dad, or, you know, their situation gets worse, not better.